All right. So it's 3 minutes past. Let's get going. So as I've said, I'm Graham from the training team, and Alexis introduced himself. So we're just going to start off by covering off the objectives for today's session. By the end of today's session, you'll understand why we're making this change, and you'll be familiar with the new navigation of the SO register. You'll understand the roles and permissions within the application, and you'll understand the workflow that goes along with it. And also at the end, we'll finish off by where you can get ongoing support using the SO register. So just as I've said, at any time, you can ask questions using the chat feature. You'll be unable to speak as it's a muted audio line. You can imagine it'd be pretty hectic if we could all talk on the audio line here. If you've come along with any questions pertaining to your particular application, whether it's in flight or your particular situation, and we won't be able to answer those today, so you'll just need to follow up with the person working on your case or contact your relationship manager. So the questions we're looking for today are pertaining to the use of the SO register. Right, so I think it's time for you to start now, Lexi.
Yep, thank you again, Graham. Yeah, good afternoon all. So we're just going to start by explaining why the change was needed and how the change will affect the way asset owners and the system operator interacts with the dispensation equivalence arrangements. It is important to understand that the code essentially managing the how we process the dispensation equivalence arrangements has not changed. So it just means that the way you interact with the system has been updated, and this new application that has been built over the few recent months will provide a modern and supported platform. And SO Register, as some other applications you may have seen already, is integrated into the operations customer portal. This will improve the way the industry communicates with the system operator. We also built a lot of user experience improvements, and we provide information on a centralized dashboard, much easier to navigate, much easier to get actions on your tasks. And we also added improvements on the visibility and auditability of the dispensation equivalence management process. So the system operator can meet its regulatory obligation, and hopefully we can reduce the manual workarounds. Here's what the operations customer portal looks like, and you can find the SO register right here. So this screenshot is from the environment, which is a staging environment. We use this for extensive testing, for user acceptance testing, and other work to improve to make sure we capture all the improvements for the production system. But essentially, the system operator register is a register kept by the system operator that records dispensation equivalence arrangements in accordance with the Electricity Industry Participation Code. And the application itself will provide workflows for the asset owners and the system operator to manage applications, as well as manage consultations on decisions with the industry. A little bit of a background on what the dispensation equivalence arrangements are. So in here, I've quickly summarized what are the conditions for granting a dispensation. So a dispensation is granted when an asset owner has a shortfall in compliance in respect to the asset owner performance obligations or technical codes, and the system operator, after reviewing evidence, can continue to operate the existing system and meet its principal performance obligations. Slightly different item is equivalence arrangement, and the condition for their approval are if an asset owner agrees to put some technical and commercial arrangements in place by a set date, and in the reasonable opinion of the system operator, the compliance with the code will be achieved, although not strictly compliant with the requirement of the code. In addition, I'd like to mention that we would have an animation on our YouTube channel, so you can actually have a look, and in there we explain the difference and how these are processed in the SO register application. As a next step, I'm going to take you through the navigation, how you interact with this SO register application, and then we'll have a look at the workflow. I will be switching between the presentation and my web browser, where I show the views of the SO register from the point of view of an asset owner. So I'll try to make sure you understand where I am, so there's no confusion. So I'm switching over to my web browser now. So this is the operations customer portal. As I explained, we are using staging environment for extensive testing and making sure the product is right before it gets released to the public. To be able to use the operations customer portal effectively, you need to have some login. And to be able to log in, you will need to and use the portal. You'll have to accept Transpower Operations Customer Portal user agreement in terms of use before you can actually proceed further. And once you're logged in, the first page you will be able to see is, I'm going to show you now how it looks from my point of view. So as you can see, I create an account, which is not my Transpower account, but it's got my name on it. And I do have some role in the SO Register application in the Operations Customer Portal. So the system has recognized me, and I'm proceeding to the SO Register. Oh, it did. All right. Oh, that's actually a very nice example. The system didn't fully recognize me, but I'll be able to log in. But essentially, this is an example of user agreement, how the one that you need to accept before you actually can proceed and use the application. So you can read through. I think this would be very common to other application in the Operation Customer Portal. So I'm confident that I'm not going to break any of those today. So I click accept. And I'll try to figure out what is wrong with my login information, which worked just before this presentation started. Okay. Okay. It's good enough. Okay. So it's me. It's my email address, temporarily created. Please don't use it because it's not monitored for anything important. So what is interesting to note is that I am a user with admin level access, and I am representing Kyle's awesome company. We named this after one of our senior engineers who contributed a lot of his time to development of this product. And it's a made up asset owner, but it gives us an experience from an asset owner perspective. So to be able to understand what menus and what settings you have, the system provides you, I can demo you what user settings menu look like. So you click on your name and you can see how system recognize you. You've seen it recognize me as a guest first time, but now it's all good. And the options you have, again, very similar to other Operations Customer Portal applications. You can contact Transpower if you have a question. I think it'll prompt your email client to send an email to SO Customer Portal mailbox. Then notifications that SO Register specifically generates for you. And we'll have a small tutorial on how you utilize notifications best. There will be a user guide provided, so you can it can navigate you from most of the situation and make sure you have the best experience using the SO Register application, and you can log out from the system. So this is reasonably straightforward. On your left-hand side, so finish off with the right-hand side. On your left-hand side, you have the main SO Register menu. If you click on this open menu, or as some people call it, hamburger icon, you'll be able to see the text description of what menu items are. So the first item of the menu is called SO Register, and I'd like to point you to the fact that the number of items you see and how you can interact with each one of them will depend on your user permission level. And for the users from asset owners, we have 3 levels. One is view, the other one is edit, and the highest level of access or permissions is the admin. This is the one I have for today's demonstration. So if we click on the SO Register first menu item, what we can see is the SO Register itself. Essentially, this is a database, a list of the dispensation and equivalence arrangements, either in granted state or in cancelled state, in all states that have ever been processed by the system operator. So not all of them have been granted successfully or cancelled. So this is when the system is production. This is going to be the formal record. This is where you'll be able to see the true and correct information. with regards to your dispensations or equivalence arrangements. In contrast to the existing system, I'm not sure how many of you have interacted with the existing one, but the new system has a very nice feature called filters. So you can actually add a number of filters. You can filter by the type of application, which is dispensation equivalence arrangement. You can filter out for different asset owner. You can filter out by station name, status, and all the other items. And essentially, it's designed to help you understand if you have any dispensations and what is the status of those dispensational equivalence arrangement in respect to a particular station or a particular asset on that station. Alternatively, if you're wondering what other asset owners are doing, you can actually look what other dispensations have been granted or equivalence arrangements approved. So you can see across the industry what other asset owners have applied for. So again, clicking on hamburger icon, so we can see the description. So the next item is applications, and this is a list of items that's showing you what items we have in flight. Specifically for this demonstration, I have prepared a number of items just to be able to provide you a complete demonstration of almost everything an asset owner could do with the SO register. So we've done our homework and we've prepared, as you can see, this has been prepared a couple hours in advance. Just some dispensations I only use as an examples to demonstrate you different functions. To avoid any confusion, I use the word webinar in front of my station name, which is simply a station and the webinar asset. So this is purely for demo purposes. They will not make their way to the production version of the database, of the SO register, effectively. The next item on your left-hand side, you have tasks. And tasks is something that is waiting for you to be actioned. If it's for somebody else or if it's a task that's been assigned to a user with a different permission level, you will not see that. But an admin level user will see all the tasks. And it's important to understand that the application process is very often step-by-step. So if there's a task assigned to you and you haven't progressed the task, it might actually slow down the progress on your application. So just be aware of that. And I will take you through how you can process those tasks later on. So just leave it here for now. The last item in the menu we have is users, and as an admin user, I can actually manage the users from my asset owner. And as you can see, I have 3 people or virtual accounts registered. This was all used for testing purposes. And for instance, I have enough permissions to adjust the level of access for other users or delete it from the system. This is, again, a common method for other applications in the operations customer portal, where we encourage admin users for their respective asset owners to keep this list up to date as much as possible and avoid people staying there in a situation where they actually left the company. And if the only user has been appointed to this particular application, you can always request to add a new user. And before the access is granted, that request will come to us and we'll just simply approve it. Ensure that the new user will have access as per the level of permission you have requested. So, and the last item that you have is going back to the portal. We're not going to do it now because we have quite a busy program for today. So what I would like to show you next is I'm going to switch back to the slides. We have looked at navigation. So the next item we're going to be looking at is some idea on the workflow. And we'll start with an interesting item, how you create a new application for the system operator to process. So conveniently, we just go to the system operator register. And for instance, we add a filter. We're trying to understand, has there been a dispensation granted in respect to our particular station and our particular asset? So you just type in the station name. If you remember, I use the word webinar to name my station. Well, the system remembers. So I do have several items in flight. I looked at it. Okay, none of those items is something I need right now. And what I'll do, I made a decision. I need to create a new application. So what I do, I go into again the right-hand side menu and I click create. Ooh. So a small issue here. So essentially, when you hit create a new application, the system is going to give you a prompt on your screen. And this prompt will actually tell you that you're about to begin a new application and remind you that the applications are processed in accordance with the code, and will tell you what clause of the code you should look at and what schedule, I think it's schedule 8.1. This governs how the items are processed. So apologies for this little, it only shows the system is in staging, and this is a real system we're actually using right now. Again, back to it, starting a new application is reasonably easy. So you hit the right type of the application you want. Dispensation, we do have a shortfall, so we cannot meet the code obligation in full. The station I'm using is the made-up station name, so I'll just use the webinar station. But eventually, you might be able to actually pull a station name that you already have in the your asset capability statement. Again, my asset is a made-up asset, so I'm just going to use a webinar asset. So this is looking good. Another item is a requested duration, and it's important to identify until which point in the future you will need the dispensation for. So we encourage the asset owners to be very accurate, and the temporary dispensation is still dispensation. So for instance, there is a piece of equipment which cannot perform, which doesn't have the full capability for the meantime. And for instance, there's an overseas specialist coming over, or there's a piece of equipment waiting to be delivered that will remediate the situation. So in this instance, you identify a date in the future until which you will need that dispensation, so you will stay compliant with the code. So for instance, I randomly picked a date. Alternatively, if you know that there is no remedial action in regards to your equipment, and that shortfall will apply for the lifetime of the asset, then and only then you should click the lifetime of the asset button. Next one, the code obligation. We don't have a particular very rigid format on how you should fill these out, but give it sufficient information to give us a clear idea what you're asking for, what you're requesting. I have prepared in a separate document the clause that is a real-life clause. Some of you may be familiar. This is about the reactive power export, otherwise known as voltage support as owner performance obligations. And in terms of my non-compliance description, I've already prepared some text, which is minimum sufficient text that we would require from you. And that is that my asset, being a webinar asset, is not capable of exporting minimum reactive power within the applicable voltage range. So I am happy with the details I provided. You see, it only taken, with a few hiccups, it only took me 5 minutes. So I hit save application. Important to note that this application is now has become part of the workflow, but that information hasn't been formally passed to the system operator for processing. So you could keep editing some of the information here. As you can see, I can go in here and maybe delete a symbol. I'll have to resave the application, but it's still in draft stage. So it gives you some option to keep drafting your application, making sure you got everything correct. After you saved, after you're happy with the wording, the next option that you have is upload the supporting information. Hopefully this works without a hitch. Yep, cool. So I did have prepared a PDF document, which is not necessarily have anything valuable for the demonstration itself, but it is a document that I can upload. As you can see, there's no key limitation on the file type that you can upload. Previously, the situation was that you have to upload only one file, so we encourage people to zip files into one. In this instance, I've added the file, I save it, and I can add another file. I checked this morning as the drop a file function unfortunately didn't work, but I used click and select and it worked every time. So I'm encouraged to use it in the meantime, and I think that'll be addressed at some future date. It is important to know that even if you're still here, you prepare your information, you attached, you prepared the words, you attached the information, you can still discard the application. Let's hit that. What does it tell us? It says that by discarding the application, you completely wipe all the information you've provided as a part of this drafting application process. And since it hasn't been actually forwarded to the system operator, nobody would know that you have been drafting this. For the purposes of the exercise, we're not going to confirm, discard the application, but it's easy as that. So all in good order, I submit my application. Again, a prompt that, are you sure you want to submit? Have you done everything? And essentially, the way a person on the system operator end would look at this, we just make sure that the that the application meets the Schedule 8.1 requirement, which is it has got to state the obligation, it's got to have sufficient information, identify the assets, so really basic requirements. So submit an application, confirm, done. Where do you find your application? You see we're in this register list. I will switch to the applications list, and the first hint that I have is that the application that has just been submitted to the system operator but hasn't been committed to yet will not have an ID on it. And if we look at the time, 2:23 looks right enough, looks about right. So if I go in there by clicking the edit button, I can actually see the application I have just made. I can see the words I just typed and the account that actually performed this action. And again, that application hasn't been committed to yet. I still can discard it. And the most interesting item you can see here is that this application being part of the workflow and the new application state has already been complete. And now a task has been assigned to the system operator compliance coordinator to start processing this application. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're not going to look at how system operator views things on our end, but we have seen how you start a new application. And now I'm going to switch back to my slides and give you a little bit more idea on the overall workflow and how an asset owner would interact with a new application. So as you remember, in the workflow diagram that you've just seen in the real system, we have looked at creating a new application step. So that is done. What is next? Next is task goes to the system operator to do the application review, and if sufficient information was provided, without any hesitation, we'll just commit to this. And the next step that we'll start processing is preparing an estimation. So we'll have a look at the scope of the work. We come up with an estimate of cost and time. Steps 2 and 3 are essentially for internal review and approvals, and then the next item where an asset owner could interact with the system is accepting the cost estimate, the cost and time estimate. So I could show you that. I'll switch back to my browser, and I do have an application in flight, which is exactly in this state. It's application 2832. For example, without knowing what application this is, how would you do it? So you take an application which looks about right, it's in the estimation phase and it's being processed. So you go into edit, and what you can see about your application. So for example, if you look at phase 1, it's all green ticked. Okay, it's been completed, the application has been reviewed, and you are in the estimation phase. So in your scope and cost estimate has been prepared by a system operator, has been approved for external release, and now you are the one who has the task to actually review the cost estimate and then accept it if that's all fine, or effectively reject it by seeking more information or seeking further justification from the system operator. So I made up some numbers for the demonstration is good enough. I simply matched the number of the ID of the dispensation just to make it very, very simple. But essentially, there'll be a certain amount of engineering hours associated with the processing of the initial assessment of the initial and engineering assessment of the application. The time frame we're looking at, on average, is about 60 days. And then will be a mandated 2-week consultation period of 10 days, which essentially at zero cost to the system operator. and some reassessment cost in case that some information has been provided to the system operator for reassessment, and this is again a made-up number for the demonstration purposes, but 20 days is roughly how much time we put in the system by default. So I am happy in my role as an asset owner. I can, before I accept this, I will show you that if you have any questions, you can actually have a comment in there. And as soon as you hit confirm, effectively what happens, your application, this estimate, the feedback goes to the step 1 of the estimation process. It gets back to the compliance coordinator to understand and try to process the feedback and maybe find an adjustment or justify the numbers in a way. So there might be some communication that is external to the system operator register, but effectively, if you requested more information, potentially there will be some adjustments. For the purpose of the demo, I have no issues with this, and I'm happy to accept this and confirm. Again, how do you know what have just happened to your application? If you remember, the number is 2832. Okay, it's still in my applications list because it's something we have in flight. It's something that I'm monitoring. It's something I've been tasked to drive to completion. And as you may have noticed that we have completed the estimation phase, and it's now in the assessment phase. And all those tasks will be visible who they actually assign to. So, for instance, resource allocation is sitting with a resource manager, which is a type of person with a system operator who can allocate tasks to different engineers. Further work will be performed by an assigned engineer, by an assigned technical reviewer, and there will be some management review before a draft decision is published. You may have noticed, I haven't said it in advance, but you will notice that the consultation phase and the finalization phase are currently grayed out. And the reason for that is because the application's not there and there's probably no value to be able to see what happens there. But I'm going to switch back to my slides and I can show you what those phases actually include. So at the end of assessment phase, when the engineering report has been prepared, reviewed, technically reviewed by management, and then the system operator is happy to issue a draft decision. Following a draft decision, a 2-week mandatory consultation is open, and we have highlighted this under consultation step in dashed lines. The reason for it is that this is where an asset owner, as well as any other person who have access to the SO register, can make a submission and contribute to this consultation process. So the code states that a person, it doesn't have to be an asset owner, it could be someone to make a submission against a draft decision published. So without further ado, I'm actually happy to demonstrate you how easy it is to make a submission against a dispensation, against an application in progress, which has been approved or not granted or not granted in draft. The example I have is when I go back to my list of applications. Again, something I prepared as a part of this preparation for the webinar. The item 2831 is a dispensation and it's in the consultation phase. Good. If you have many applications in flight or you're trying to access it using the SO register menu, you can also do that. So if you let me check this, if you can have a status. Okay, from the status point of view, you can see what is being processed. You're not necessarily seeing what is being put under the consultation. So we know it's item 2832. Okay, so this from SO register list, it's not going to tell you that this is an item under the consultation. But again, if you go in here, okay, this is the item that we have accepted the cost estimate for. Okay, apologies. I'll take you to the item that has been granted in draft. So it's item 1031. Apologies for that. So there's a short list, and you can see the application that I have made. Another thing what you can see is that, again, this is something I prepared in advance, and the draft decision is based on some engineering assessment. So by default, the applicant asset owner, so i.e. myself, because I made this application, I can have access to the report that has been prepared by the system operator. So you can see what justification is, what has been assessed and what the outcome of the assessment is. Although what will be available for the public, for the general public, is this very short assessment summary. The system operator has conducted an assessment and is comfortable with granting this. Okay, good. So we were able to see what items are currently under consultation. We clicked edit, and this window, this part of the workflow actually provides us an opportunity to make a submission since the application is in the consultation phase. As you can see, all other phases has been complete, so it's progressing well. In here, your submission would be limited to 2 fields. Submission subject, again, this is a webinar exercise, so just in very few brief words, summarize what you actually would like to what your submission is about. So my submission is webinar, and I'm just going to use any random text I put in here. I don't have anything pre-typed, but again, the system recognized you've entered sufficient information, and you can save and submit. Alternatively, if you have an attachment, you have an engineering report that you think is material to this item being processed by a system operator, you more than welcome to send it to the SO customer portal mailbox, and that will be attached and processed in accordance with the current procedure. I'd like to note that every submission is considered by the system operator, and during the finalization stage, right before the final decision is published, you will be given a response by the system operator, either compliance coordinator or the engineer, in respect of your submission. It is important to understand that some submissions would provide material information, would trigger a material change in the assessment made that will trigger a reassessment. So the system operator will update the engineering assessment, and it's not necessarily that it would lead to a decision on granting or not granting dispensation to be reverted, but it could likely lead to some adjustments made in conditions or some additional scenarios to be studied under the engineering assessment. Okay. Would I like to make a submission? Yes, it should be as easy as that. It's done. As you can see, the system has recognized who made the submission. It's my temporary account representing an asset owner with an admin level access. The date, I can make only one submission, and if I'd like to make a different one, I would have to delete this one and make a new one, and the submissions will be reviewed at the end of the period. Now, I would like to explain to you what things you can do with an item, with an application that is in flight. I'm just going to quickly refer to my notes. Yes, so if you have an in-flight application, and if some of you used the previous database, it allowed you still some several actions on an application in flight, instead of not only responding on tasks assigned to you, but also managing the application in flight. So for instance, we have an item which is in the assessment phase and being processed. So this is an item we'd like to modify in one way or another. So the two options we do have is amend or withdraw. So amending an application in flight is when an applicant asset owner believes some information needs to be corrected or additional supporting information needs to be provided. So I click amend, and in here I need to provide an amendment reason why I'm actually doing this, and it would be much appreciated if you could provide a clear idea what items you have actually changed, so it's very clear and easy to process this amendment request. And the most common scenario I see is that if additional information needs to be provided, so additional information will be, it gives you a chance to upload sufficient information, additional information for an application in flight. Apologies. Again, if you were uncertain that you actually need to make an amendment or you clicked it by mistake, you can hit a discard an amendment, and it will prompt you. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I am. Discard the amendment. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. And an item to keep in mind is that, for instance, I just for the good measure, I added the space in here without changing any content, and then you have to save the amendment reason, so the information you heard in here, and then you'll have to submit that amendment request. And it'll be the system operator compliance coordinator looking at this amendment request and trying to understand if it materially changes the assessment being conducted, or the assessment that has already been conducted, and if this amendment impacts the processing time, the processing cost, and in this respect, the cost estimate will be updated and sent to you for acceptance. Okay, I would like to discard my amendment, and this time I'm going to click yes. Okay, cool. So the item in flight, I was trying to amend it. I demonstrate the functionality. Another thing you can do with an application in flight is withdraw it. You have realized that this dispensation is no longer necessary just to be compliant with the code. So you hit withdraw, and this field is much easier. You just need to provide a reason. For instance, a piece of equipment has been decommissioned, a different solution was found that will achieve compliance with the code. So again, this is as easy as that. You provide the withdrawal reason to the system operator. I'm just going to put this again, most common word used today, webinar. I'm going to save this and submit this for the system operator processing. One thing to be aware of is if some work has been done, some hours have been booked by a SO engineer, there will be some invoice coming to you to be settled. As you can see in the workflow, very nice, very short workflow. You provide the withdrawal reason, and then it's followed by invoicing, and then this application will be recorded in the SO register as withdrawn. All right, I think we're doing very well on time. Another item I would like to show you is how you manage a dispensation that has already been granted to you, or an equivalence arrangement has been approved. You will not see this in the list of applications that you have because this item has been fully completed, fully processed. And again, this is something I have prepared in advance just to give you best experience we can over a webinar. And since I'm an asset owner for Cals Ohlson Company, I filter what is there in the system that is granted, but I would like to demonstrate to you what I can do with the granted dispensation. So I go in the summary, action summary tab, as I've demonstrated you on a different example before. This shows the information on the asset owner, on the station and asset, respective code obligation, respective engineering report is available to applicant asset owner, and assessment summary. Also, conditions imposed are very important. This item is fully granted. We, as a system operator, don't anticipate, we're not intending to do anything, but in this instance, I'm going to show you what an asset owner can actually do with an item which has been granted. So one thing to change something in your granted dispensation is to initiate a vary. A vary, I'd like to note that when you're varying a dispensation, it was granted before and it would remain granted after. So, for instance, your dispensation, it's not uncommon historically for dispensations to be covering a number of units. We know that some asset owners have requested some units to be deleted from those dispensations simply because they were decommissioned. This is why you would initiate a vary request. Again, you show, you demonstrate a reason why you need to vary it. You identify what you're actually trying to vary. And then if there's any supporting information you would like to attach to it, there's plenty of opportunity to do that. What is important to remember is that vary is a process that requires an assessment by the system operator. And that assessment, these hours have to be will have to be recovered. The cost for that has to be recovered. So it passes through an estimation phase, it goes through an assessment phase, and then either dispensation or equivalence arrangement can only be varied via a consultation with the industry. So the variation is a process on itself. Any person, most likely asset owners or other industry participants, could make a submission against a decision to vary a dispensation one way or another. But what's important to understand, at the end, you would still have a granted dispensation. The decision is about varying it as you requested or not varying as you requested. So I'm not going to demonstrate the full workflow. It is to an extent similar to a new application workflow that I demonstrated you earlier. But essentially, if you start providing the reasons, you save an application and save a variation application, and then you submit the variation. I'm going to discard this for now because I have another item I would like to show you. Okay, discarding is fine. Again, it wipes all the information from the system. We would not know you were planning to do that. Again, the only item I have in granted state, good enough to actually make you a small demo. Another important item, another important action you can take against the granted dispensation is to cancel it. This is much straighter workflow. As you can see, there's only one tab, there's only one phase for this. You provide a cancellation reason. We take this cancellation request as the face value. What we need to be aware of is it might trigger some system operator real-time tools update. We just need to make sure it's all tidy at the end of it, and then we complete the action, and then that dispensation will be cancelled or equivalence arrangement will be cancelled. And on the cancellation, there is no need to consult with the industry. So I guess that is all the important things that one could do in terms of interacting with the SO register. An important note is that the system operator register will communicate to you via email. So for instance, if you have a task assigned to you, for instance, if you have something in your task list waiting for you, you see in here, I actually have committed withdrawal request. Oh, okay. So the system remembers that I initiated some withdrawal and I can complete that. But for instance, if a system operator has prepared an estimate and now the action is on you to review and accept it or seek further information, an email which says system operator register task you have been assigned a task of review and accept the cost estimate. So this is the first type of email notification it gets from the system, and another one will be covered in the tutorial for notifications. This is how the system notifies you of some sends you milestone notification in respect to the SO register, either new applications or some applications being cancelled. So this will be covered in the tutorial. So I'm just going to go back to my slides and show you that we have everything covered. Okay, as I explained, after finalization, during the finalization phase, system operator will prepare responses to all submissions. Final decision will be published and available to the general audience. System operator will update tools and systems if necessary. There will be some invoicing component in there, and after that, the applications will be fully processed and complete. A question that you might ask is that what happens to your pre-existing application? And I think this covers both an item that you have had in granted or approved stage or an item that you have had in flight. In the DIN database, how is it going to be, what's going to happen to it when the SO register is go live. this is not necessarily the most striking example, but what we'd like to assure you that we do have a migration process in place, and that has been trialed in a test environment and a staging environment. So all items that have been granted or in any status, they will be correctly transferred to the new system, migrated to the new system, and all the in-flight items, applications currently being processed by the system operator will be transferred to the new system, and all the new tasks that require your attention notifications will be coming from SO Register. In case there's a hiccup and you do get assigned a task and you can't complete it in neither of those, please reach us at SO Customer Portal, and this the best mailbox for any technical difficulties or issues with the SO Register. So I complete the demo. I'm happy to pass it back to you.
Yeah, sure. Let's move on to the next slide. Thanks very much, Alexei. Appreciate that. So as you've been listening along, if any questions have occurred to you, please write them in the chat. We also have Carl, a senior engineer here on board, and he can answer any questions in the chat. And we've had one come up so far, but if anyone else has any, please send them in there, and we'll be able to respond on the dot. Also, we're available after the session, and if we run over time, that's all right. We'll still be here to answer questions, and if you're the only one left, maybe we can unmute you and just have a chat. Right, so here's the summary of what we've covered so far. So the SO Register replaces the DNE database. As you're aware, you just had a demo going through much of the main functionality of it. The register is part of the Operations Customer Portal. You remember at the beginning of the demonstration, we entered from the portal. Your existing applications will be migrated for you. As Alexei covered, most of the information will be there for you. It will be brought across automatically, so you won't need to do anything extra as a part of migration. Asset owner admins can manage their own users. So we've given you a brief demo of that, but we'll also have a tutorial on users and user management that we'll be releasing shortly. You'll receive communications on that. The new workflow adds transparency, so you can see where your application is in the process. So as we've shown you, even if it isn't a part of the workflow that you're required to take action for, you can hover over that portion of the workflow within your application, and you can see who's responsible for it. All right. Okay, so ongoing support. As I said, if you've got any questions, please type them in right now. But also, by the time you go live, we'll have released our animation, just covering off the basics of what, well, our animation does what dispensation and equivalence arrangements are all about. So if you've got any question on that, that's a good place to start. We all have our tutorials. So we've got one on user management, we've got another one on notifications, another one on creating an application, and a basic navigation piece. The navigation one will be a short version of what we've covered today. This webinar recording will be made available, so you can take a look at that. Also, a good resource will be to use the user guide. You can access that via the user menu in the top right when you log in to the SO Register. If you have any questions that you haven't managed to answer by looking at the tutorials or the user guide, then you can email so_customer_portal@transpower.co.nz. Right, so that's us done for today. So if you've got any questions, stick around and put them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you from me. And
yeah, thank you from me.
Thank you, and have a good day.